At 9:45 on a Saturday night, an 84-year-old woman is dropped off at her own front door after dinner with her family. 9 hours later, her doorbell camera goes dark. 16 minutes after that, the app connected to her pacemaker loses signal. By the next morning, when she doesn't log into her Sunday church service like she does every week without fail, her family knows something is wrong. More than 5 months later, nobody, not her family, not the sheriff's department, not the FBI, can tell you where she is. This is the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. Nancy Guthrie lived in the Catalina foothills just outside Tucson, Arizona. She's the mother of 4 adult children, including Savannah Guthrie, co-anchor of NBC's Today Show. On the night of January 31st, 2026, Nancy had dinner at her daughter Annie's home nearby and was driven back to her own house around 9:45. That's the last confirmed moment anyone in her family saw her. At 1:47 the following morning, her doorbell camera was disconnected. A few minutes of movement were picked up on the device afterward. But because Nancy didn't have the paid cloud subscription that saves that footage, none of it was preserved. 16 minutes after the camera went dark, the app tracking her pacemaker also lost its connection to her phone. Nancy didn't log on the next morning for the virtual church service she attended religiously with friends. When she couldn't be reached, her family grew concerned, checked in around noon, and called 911 at 12:03 p.m. Deputies arrived at her home within the hour. What they found turned a missing persons check into something far more serious. Blood was discovered on Nancy's front porch, later confirmed to be hers. Her phone, wallet, and car were all found untouched inside the home. There was no sign she had simply walked out, and no sign of a struggle inside the house itself. Just that blood on the porch, and a woman who was simply gone. Within a day, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos announced publicly that his department now considered this a crime, not a wellness check gone unanswered. He made a direct, urgent appeal. Nancy required daily medication, he said, medication that could become fatal to go without for more than about a day. The case, in his words, was a race against time. The FBI joined the investigation almost immediately, and within 3 days, the case took its strangest turn yet. Multiple news outlets began receiving ransom notes. One demanded millions of dollars in Bitcoin. Another claimed to know the identities of whoever had taken her. A third, one investigators didn't make public for months out of concern for the family, claimed Nancy had died sometime after being abducted. None of the ransom notes have ever been confirmed as genuine. In fact, one person has already been prosecuted for sending a fake one. A California man named Christian Colella pleaded guilty in July to 2 federal charges of harassment using a telecommunications device after admitting he'd sent a spoofed ransom demand of his own. He's set to be sentenced in September. But, and this is important, investigators have been clear that Colella was not responsible for the earlier notes, the ones sent in the first days of the case. The FBI has said it's still evaluating several other notes as potentially legitimate, while dismissing others outright as opportunistic extortion attempts riding on a national news story. That uncertainty, genuine notes mixed in with fake ones, some withheld from the public for months at a time, has become its own source of controversy. Sheriff Nanos has acknowledged publicly that his department has deliberately withheld certain details from the public, saying plainly that it's not to keep the public in the dark for its own sake, but to protect the integrity of the case itself. Whether that reasoning holds up is something reasonable people disagree on. And it's fair to say the family, the public, and even some retired law enforcement officials have expressed real frustration with how slowly information has come out. That frustration boiled into public view in early July when the FBI put out a statement that seemed to hedge on its own theory of the case. At one point suggesting they were still investigating it as a kidnapping for ransom, while separately indicating internal uncertainty about whether any of the ransom communications were legitimate at all. Retired FBI agent Steve Moore, who has been closely tracking the case in media interviews, said publicly that he believes there's real disagreement inside the investigation itself about what actually happened to Nancy. It's worth being clear that this is one former agent's outside assessment, not a confirmed account of internal FBI deliberations. But it reflects a broader sense shared by a lot of people following this case closely, that answers have been slow to come and inconsistent when they do. Moore has also offered a grimmer read on the evidence itself. Given the blood found at the scene, he said publicly that it's a real possibility Nancy did not survive long enough for a legitimate ransom demand to ever be made, meaning that if this began as a kidnapping for financial gain, something may have gone wrong almost immediately. That is his interpretation of the evidence, not a confirmed finding by investigators, and no official determination about what happened to Nancy has been announced by law enforcement as of this recording. As of today, there's a combined reward of $1.2 million being offered for information leading to Nancy's safe recovery, funded by a mix of official and family sources. No suspect has been named. No arrest has been made in her disappearance itself, only in the case of the fake ransom note. Savannah Guthrie has continued to speak publicly about her mother throughout, including telling colleagues she won't hide from the story even as she's returned to her job on national television, more than 5 months in. This is a case with no shortage of information. Thousands of tips, hours of footage, DNA evidence still being processed, and still no answer to the only question that actually matters. Where is Nancy Guthrie? If you have any information related to this case, the FBI can be reached at 1-800-CALL-FBI or at tips.fbi.gov, and the Pima County Sheriff's Department can be reached directly as well. Current contact information will be in the description below. We don't know how this one ends. Some of the cases on this channel never get an ending at all. This one we're still hoping does. Next time, another file, another name worth remembering.